Then at this time, I'll call to order the Land Clearance Redevelopment Authority for the City of St. Louis for its regularly scheduled meeting held on February 27, 2024 via Zoom. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Koenig,
Here.
Commissioner Jones,
Present.
Commissioner Spencer,
Present.
and Chairman Grimes.
Present.
You have a quorum with 4 present and 1 absent.
All right, and we'll take up the approval of minutes. I'll go ahead and bifurcate it. So we'll take approval of minutes for December 28, 2023. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Probably moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote?
I'm sorry.
You're
Pre-
cutting out, Linda.
I didn't hear you.
For the voting for the minutes, December 28th,
Maybe a roll call vote, please?
Aye.
can you hear me okay?
Now we can.
No.
No?
Now we can. You're talking louder. We couldn't before.
A roll call vote. Commissioner Koenig,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Spencer,
Aye.
and Chairman Grimes.
Aye,
Motion passes with all voting yes.
thank you. And now we'll take up approval of minutes for January 23, 2024. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Is there any request for previous?
Request for previous.
Properly moved and seconded with a request for previous roles or any objection to that request? Hearing none, motion passes and the minutes are approved. We're going to take up resolution 24 LCRA 10A39 relating to engineering architecture design for 3940 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. Peter, you going to walk us through that? You're on mute.
Sorry about that.
Right.
So,
No problem.
good afternoon, commissioners. So yes, resolution 10839 is seeking your approval and authorization to accept the recommendation of the selection committee for a request for qualification solicitation process that we went through for architecture and engineering and design services at 3940 Dr. Martin Luther King. If the commissioners recall, it was back in October, LCRA acquired this property and adjacent parcels as well, with the intention to redevelop and turn into a community asset, and with a large focus on workforce development and education, also being the housing center for the, well, hopefully the housing center for the Northside Economic Empowerment Center, maybe a satellite office for Slate, et cetera, as we develop the programming. And so this is one of the most important processes that we can have in terms of getting to the point of finalizing and designing that programming and the tenancy, et cetera. And so back in January, we issued a request for qualifications for these services with a due date in February. And we actually had a very good response rate. We had 14 responses from architecture and engineering firms that were interested in the project. We held a series of selection committee meetings, including interviews with the highest 4 identified firms at the time after the initial evaluation of all proposals. And after all of the evaluation sessions from the selection committee, the recommendation from that committee to the board was to identify the top 3 ranked firms as being Christner Architects, Inc., M. Arthur Gensler Jr. and Associates, and Gemma LLC. And those are the 3 that are being presented. And as this is a qualifications-based selection, this was strictly based on qualifications, previous experience, and examples, as well as their approach to this project as it was presented and how we are looking to redevelopment this site. And so those were the criteria that were evaluated. So what we're seeking here is the acceptance of this qualifications-based selection process, the recommendation of the top 3 firms, and an approval to enter into negotiations with the top firm, Christner Inc. And then at that point, this is going to be a relatively large project that we're kind of breaking it into phases. First phase being the full evaluation of the building, structural, mechanical, et cetera, and then the initial beginning programming and planning phase, discussion with stakeholders ourselves, other potential tenants, et cetera, to kind of really build out that design. Later phases will be for the actual design and construction documents, as well as the oversight of the actual construction work once it commences, as well as additional iterations of design and programming as they are needed. And so what we are seeking here with this resolution is authority to, in addition to accepting the recommendations of the selection committee for the top 3 firms, and to enter negotiations with Christner Inc., which, by the way, if negotiations fail, once we enter into them, for any reason, we would move on to the second ranked firm and then the third ranked firm, respectively. And we're also seeking an allowance of an approval of $200,000 for this initial phase, which I don't believe will cover everything that we are looking to do, but we are trying to move forward as quickly as possible. If the board also possibly recollects that we did receive some technical assistance from the Environmental Protection Agency for some initial conceptual designs for this project. And they are going to be wrapping up here very shortly in March. And we were hoping to try and onboard the architects and engineers as soon as possible to engage with the EPA team, consultant team that did some of this, so that they can learn from and bounce questions off and consult with them a little bit as part of their initial programming and design phase. So if at all possible, we are seeking to receive up to approval for up to $200,000 to enter into that first negotiation, which, like I said, will require multiple iterations and additional phases down the road, which will all in the future be brought back before the board before we exceed that amount. We are just at this time looking for authorization to go forward with the assessment of the building, full evaluation, and the early stages of the design process. And so with that background, I also have with us Ms. Stacy Way from Christner Inc. To maybe give a brief background and some of the relevant experience from her firm, and maybe answer any questions that the commissioners may have. So I will at this time step back and open it up to questions for myself. And if you don't have any, the commissioner's pleasure, can bring forward Ms. Stacy Way.
Thank you. Any questions for Peter?
Peter, is it customary to share the scorecard, or how you made this decision based on the different factors that you looked into come to this board today?
Yes, it can definitely be made available for sure.
That would be really helpful for me before we get into this type of discussion. I really want to see this happen, and we're all excited about the project, but without some additional background, it's hard to understand how the decision was made.
So yes, I can pull it up here. Like I said,
And David, is it all right for Peter to share that? I didn't think we did in the past, actually. And you're muted, David, maybe.
We
Now
are
you're
muted.
unmuted. You're unmuted now, David.
So I believe historically we have not put that type of information out publicly during the selection committee process and during the selection of the board process. That's something that would become an open record later after the decisions have been made. Primarily because to provide that to the public would allow the people who are still in competition to see where each other are as the negotiation takes place. It's something that could be shared with the board, certainly as you're involved with the selection decision making, but not something that you would necessarily want to provide to those who are being negotiated with. Hope that makes sense.
It did, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page. So, Peter, if you just want to share that with us after the meeting, I think that may be most appropriate and helpful. Anything else for Peter? All right, Stacy, if you want to fill in and touch base on the accomplishments of Christner, and I hope that all the good work you did at Wrong is going to be one of those you tick off for us, because we're really happy to have that in my neighborhood. Stacy.
Okay, thanks everyone. My name is Stacy Way. I'm a managing principal at Christner Architects. If you're not familiar with Christner, we are a local St. Louis-based design firm. Our office is located within the city of St. Louis, and many of us are proud city residents, including myself. We are a 50-person multidisciplinary firm. We have architects, interior designers, and landscape architects within our office. And we are a women-owned business. Not only is our leadership women-led, but over 50% of our licensed professionals are women as well. So we're a very proud St. Louis-based women-owned firm. As far as similar projects go, we've done a lot of work within the city of St. Louis. As Matt mentioned, the Rung for Women project in Fox Park is a great comparable project to what this one will become. We worked with Rung to master plan their site, assess existing buildings, construct a 60,000 square foot new space for them, and recently expanded on that same site as well. We've also been doing work with St. Louis Community College. Christner was the lead architect on the new Center for Technology and Health Sciences on their Wildwood campus. We've done work on their Forest Park campus as well. And we've worked with many colleges and universities in the metro area on similar projects as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions or speak to any other experience in more detail.
Yeah, we don't know exactly what the parameters are. I don't think that we saw all of what you're asked to do on the site. So if you might want to give us just a little flavor of what, at least what you've been asked to do. I know you haven't had time to really
Sure.
put anything together, but maybe just to touch on that, please.
Yeah, sure. As Peter mentioned, there are several different phases of work that we'll be pursuing on this project. For the initial phase, we're really focused on assessments and understanding the constraints and conditions of the existing facilities and site. So as part of that work, we are recommending a comprehensive topographic site survey be performed so we can understand the topography of the site and existing utility infrastructure throughout the site. We will also have a team of architects and engineers perform detailed site assessments where they're walking through the buildings to understand existing constraints and conditions. So for example, the architects will be evaluating the envelope of the buildings. That would be the exterior walls, the roof, windows, and doors, understanding what condition they're in and what might need to be replaced. Our structural engineer will really be assessing all of the structural systems and looking to understand any immediate remediation that needs to occur, what the potential opportunities are with the existing structural systems, and understand what those triggering thresholds may be for renovations. We know that when renovating an existing building of this type, if you're changing the hazard level or making major changes to the usage or occupancy of the building, it can at times equate to triggering events where whole building seismic upgrades are required. That can be very costly. So we want to make sure that we're understanding those thresholds and designing within them as the project moves forward. Our MEP engineers would also be looking to understand the existing systems, building systems that are in place at the current site, and if any of those can be reused or perhaps modified but leveraged to mitigate costs in the project. We also have an elevator consultant who'll be looking at the two existing elevators on site and understanding if they are up to current code and if they can be reused in the future. In addition to that, we'll be doing some code analysis to understand life safety challenges and constraints and accessibility analysis as well. So those are kind of the core components of that. As Peter mentioned, this could leeway into some very, very early conceptual design where we're just understanding what's the highest and best use of spaces and how can we really leverage the existing assets to be economical and effective with the project.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Way? Commissioner Spencer.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions on maybe some of the additional support services. So are there environmental or any soil samples, structural engineering you mentioned, anything else that might be an additional subcontractor service? And do you know if there's any minority participation requirements for any of the subs that you might bring onto this project?
I can speak to the minority consultants. So there are 2 WBE firms, and then we have a few MBE firms as well on the team. So we have looked for opportunities to include WBE and MBE as much as possible on the project. And Peter, I don't know if you want to speak to the environmental piece.
Correct. Yeah, I'll take that. So we did perform environmental phase 1 site assessment before we purchased the property, which does have some recommendations. It actually a previous phase 2 was conducted in the past before our ownership as well. But we do have plans to move forward with an additional phase 2 environmental site assessment, as well as take a look at some of the building materials to see if they pose any potential hazards during renovation process. That will be done separately on our own. We'll go ahead and contract that through our own environmental engineering shortlist firms. We'll put that out and contract that separately instead of putting that into this contract.
And I guess does the team also include a civil engineer for the first phase?
Yes, David Mason and Associates has been proposed as our civil engineering consultant.
And are there any initial thoughts about building anything new, or are we just going to use the existing structure?
So if you recall, so there were 30 total parcels that we acquired, including almost the entire south half of the city block, just south of this main facility. In additional, there's some parcels to the north across MLK as well. But for there may be. But for the purposes of this, we're trying to move forward with the understanding of trying to reuse the structure as much as possible and utilize the space that's existing. If it comes to be that during the programming and design phase, we decide that there's not enough space for what we need in the current facility, we will probably look to utilize some of the adjacent vacant parcels around it. But for right now, I think our main focus is on this initial 3940 parcel.
So that site, the Killard site, is primarily the focus of this and not a master plan for the additional lots. This is just strictly for the educational center and some of the other things, just with the existing Killard building.
At this time, I would say yes, that is correct. Again, at some future time, I think we will plan on trying to incorporate and make sense and make, associated uses of the parcels that are adjacent. But I think we're just trying to take it one step at a time and focus on this building currently.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Way or Mr. Phillips on this resolution?
Rob's got his hand up, Chairman.
Thank you. The yellow hand was blending in with the yellow wall. Mr. Orr.
I will try and get my wall painted.
just a section of it.
Yeah. Thank you. I just want to follow up a little bit on what Peter said. So there's a couple of reasons why we're moving very quickly on this piece of it. As Peter mentioned, the EPA is completing their study. It's wrapping up by mid-March. We definitely need some overlap to benefit from the knowledge that their consultants bring to the project, and with Stacy and her team, so that we're hitting the ground running with the full development of the entire facility. We are also very anxious to have some users in the facility at some point, even if it's maybe some interim uses. We have monies to maintain this facility for a period of time. We're working on that to identify what the ultimate cost of renovation will be and the improvements that need to be made to the entire facility, to the parking lots, the entrances, elevators, things like that, so that we can occupy space in the building. We do need to generate revenue from tenants and from other users, or even offset costs, as it may be with LRA's maintenance facility relocating to this facility. Regarding the other parcels and the tremendous opportunities we have, particularly on the half city block to the south of this site, on the other side of an alley, we will take a little bit more time with that, but we're looking for this to really be the anchor and a catalyst for the MLK project, kind of the, if you would, the east end of that corridor. So we are very hopeful to fully develop all of the parcels that have been acquired along with this, but we will take more time to understand whether that's a mix of commercial, residential, industrial uses, other innovative manufacturing type uses, workforce development. But that's why we're anxious to get Stacy and her team going to help us think through what those possibilities are to maximize really the tremendous opportunity we have here on MLK to establish a new home for the Empowerment Center and other users in the facility, and to ultimately create something that's a catalyst for this neighborhood. I just wanted to add that flavor. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the commissioners? All right. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve resolution 24 LCRA 10839.
I so move.
Is there a second or request for previous
Second.
roll?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please? Linda, you're muted, I believe.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Spencer
Aye.
and Chair McBride.
Aye.
Motion passes with all voting yes.
Very good. Well, thank you, and we look forward to negotiating with you, Ms. Way. All right, anything in open agenda? Nothing in open agenda. We have items on executive session. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session for the reasons that Mr. David Meyer will list for us.
Right, so that would be to discuss legal actions, cause of action, confidential or privileged communications with attorneys or audit. Not you. Okay.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, our auditors is provided by section 610.021 sub 1, or to discuss documents related to a negotiated contract is provided by section 610.021 sub 12.
Very good. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Koenig,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Spencer,
Aye.
Chair McBride.
Aye.
Motion passes with all voting yes.
Thank you. And at this time, we'll go into executive session, but we'll return back to this link before the meeting is closed. Thank you. Back in open session, and is there anything in open agenda? I'm not hearing anything. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 26, 2024. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're probably adjourned. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Aye.